Does this look like fur to you? Does it? Does this look like fur? Or maybe this. Does this look like fur? Of course not. Ghillie suits are designed to mimic vegetation, just like the mossy oak camouflage. Very similar to this. You can tell it has a 3D leaf pattern cut into it. It's designed to look like leaves on a tree. It's to make you look like a bush. So what, Michael? Why do we care? Why do we care about your stupid ghillie suit? I bring up the ghillie suit to drive home a single point. Reach back into the deep recesses of your brain. File through that memory Rolodex. How many Bigfoot eyewitnesses do you remember that describe the Sasquatch people as this giant person? Looked like he was wearing a ghillie suit. It's an extremely common description. It's much more common than somebody saying, you know what? That looked like a giant person wearing a bear suit or a bear skin. And that's not to say that sometimes people don't, say, oh, it looked like it was wearing fur. I wish to put forth to you the outlandish, crazy notion that the Sasquatch people are plant-based. And to substantiate my theory, I'm going to offer you some key points to it. One little known fact is that dogs, for the most part, hunting dogs, refuse to track these things. Case in point, the legend of Boggy Creek. They had top-notch hunting dogs that refused to track this thing, wouldn't go after it. Dogs are often reported when people have encounters with the Sasquatch people. The dog is freaked out, frothing at the mouth, crawl under an ATV, shivering and shaking. Dogs have senses and abilities that far surpass that of humans. Namely, they have an unbelievable sense of smell and a great sense of hearing. Number two, how often have people reported a sulfur smell? Wet dog mixed with raw garbage. Anybody that's ever spent much time in a swamp, you know what the smell of decaying vegetation smells like. It has a sulfur smell to it. It releases methane. Some of the audio recordings that we have, namely from the West Coast, although there are a few from Ohio, that most people seem to think come from the Sasquatch people, tend to be generated by something that has an incredible lung capacity. Like the length and the deepness of these sounds don't seem like it's possible for a normal creature to make them. Like they don't have the lung capacity, to carry out this woo for a really long time. Granted, some primates, namely orangutans and howler monkeys come to mind, have special adaptations to their vocal sacs that allow them to, have some air in reserve, almost like you're running a bagpipe. But if we consider that the Sasquatch people are plant-based, plant beings, then it makes sense that they could have a large lung capacity. The Iroquois Indians have a legend of the stone giants, which they said that their skin was so hard that arrows would bounce off it. And I have recollection of at least one, if not a couple, reports where people have shot at these things with guns. In one, there was a couple kids shooting at it with a .22, and they said they could hear the bullet, smack, smack, hitting the creature, but no response. Like they shot at it a couple times, and then finally the creature took off at this incredible speed. The Sasquatch people, Bigfoot, are often reported doing inhuman activities, jumping down off a tree 30 feet, running way faster than a person could run, moving boulders and trees of a size that a human being couldn't possibly move. In other words, that they're exhibiting incredible strengths. Now, if you've ever tried to shoot at a tree, it starts to make sense. Like if you shoot at a tree, I don't care what kind of caliber you got, unless you've got something big enough to blow the tree up, it doesn't go very far into the tree. Like if somebody's shooting at you, hide behind a tree. It's a perfect thing to hide behind because it will stop the impact of those bullets. When we think about things being particularly durable or strong. We think of strong as an oak. Perhaps there was a reason that the Celts and Druids honored the oak tree, revered the oak trees. Which brings me to another point of the Celts, the Greenman. Much like the Lechy of Russia, which was a forest guardian, the Greenman is frequently illustrated as a person with leaves on their face. Like this thing is the living embodiment of a tree. Now I know some of you guys, and rightly so, are going, oh, Merchant's off his rocker. That's crazy talk. I think we often forget, those are us that are faced with the Sasquatch reality on a daily basis, like you guys are watching videos and you just can't get enough material, right? Is that we take it for granted. Especially if you've seen a Bigfoot, you're like, you kind of get into this mindset where you think, well, you know, other people accept this as real, but they don't. The public sector, for the most part, thinks we're all batshit crazy. Just the mention of Bigfoot, kind of like, yeah, they do the eye roll. Is it really so crazy to suggest that these things are plant people, are plant-based? Based on what we know, based on their seeming to be impervious to bullets, except when Justin Smeha shoots it at them. Being able to have this sulfur, decaying plant-type smell that a lot of people report. Being able to move extremely fast. I'm also familiar with a story, I don't know what tribe of Indians it was, but apparently they saw this Sasquatch person go into this, what was an island in the middle of a river. And so a bunch of braves got together and they could see all entry and exit points to this island, so they knew the creature was in there, and they went down and did an extensive search, and all they found were trees and bushes and rocks. I think you guys can see this. This book that was loaned to me by my friend Scott from down east details several occurrences of people encountering Sasquatch people. One of them that I will share with you involved a guy that ran across one of these creatures on Shoshunkuk Lake, which is a little bit northwest of Moosehead Lake. He had been tasked with taking a paycheck to the loggers that was up there. This was in the late 1800s. He ran across a creature that was referred to as Pumula, the guardian of Mount Catardhan. The strangest aspect of his story was that this thing was following him, so eventually, you know, he got his nerve up. He said, I'm not going to run away from this thing. So he took his axe and he ran at it. Like, ah! Ran at the creature. In response, this creature stopped following him and went to this little, everything was snow covered, right? But he went to the shoreline and there was a bunch of dead stags, a bunch of stumps and stuff there. This creature went over there and right in front of him turned into a stump, which blew the guy's mind. To give him credit, he was quite courageous because he went over to examine it and said that he hit this hey! He said he hit this stump with his axe and the thing grunted at him. That's perhaps the only eyewitness account that I'm aware of somebody seeing one of these things actually turn into a tree. Although cases of people seeing these things run into trees and disappear are quite common. There was a video from a lady in Germany that saw it happen, and even Lady K, when she saw one of these things, the first time she saw one, it ran really fast and appeared to go behind the tree, but didn't come out the other side. The loggers over in Europe had, I forget what they called the creature, but there was a creature that lived in the forest that was said to mimic the sounds of trees falling down to scare the loggers out of the forest. Like the Sasquatch people frequently throw sticks at people, they throw rocks at people. While fans of Melba Ketchum, the cat vet that had an F rating by the Better Business Bureau of Texas, meaning that she was incompetent in what she was doing, some of the people that believe that she actually knows what she's doing will say, well, we have DNA. Melbourne Ketchum found DNA. She sequenced it. That's not to say, let me clarify that there was a lot of good people, a lot of solid researchers that sent this woman samples, and I don't want to discredit their work. I'm only saying that I don't really think she knows what she's doing. Maybe she does know what she's doing, but all of her samples came back as either contamination or human. Now my good friend Randy, very wise guy, I think of him as probably the top, if not the top, one of the top Bigfoot researchers there are, because he has a lot of insight into this thing, shared with me that these creatures will stash clumps of hair in places apparently to see if we'll find it. Now if my information is correct, he took it upon himself to take some of this hair that he collected, and he had it sequenced, and guess what? That's right, it came back as human. Clearly these creatures are not human. They don't even look human. Perhaps, just maybe they're collecting human hair and stashing it. For what reason, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe to attract our attention. But I don't think the hair that people are getting from these creatures, I'm not convinced that it is generated by them. It may be being left by them, it may be being stashed by them, but I don't think it's coming off from them. We also have reports of these creatures being able to walk bipedally, instantly drop down to all fours, run off, and to crawl. Some people even have reported that they'll crawl on their, like, appears to be on their fingertips at the same speed a person can run at. Now, unless you've studied anatomy extensively, that might not seem that strange to you, but the fact of the matter is, it's pretty difficult for a creature, like nearly impossible for a creature that's designed to walk bipedally, to have any kind of locomotion on all fours that's as fast. I mean, you can do it. There are people that run on all fours. But this would present a host of difficulties for most normal creatures. I don't think it would present the same difficulties if you were plant-based. Mainly because if you were plant-based, you wouldn't have bones. You know? And where are these things coming up with these rocks? Like, frequently they're clack, clack, clack. Lady K and myself have recorded several instances of where they're bashing rocks together. Like, how is it that they have these rocks on hand? Are they running around with these things, you know, where they got them in their mouth? Are they holding them in their hands? It's very, very common for people to report encounters with Sasquatch that are initiated by them throwing pebbles at us, throwing fist-sized rocks. Sometimes they'll throw big rocks. How is that possible? Where are they coming up with these rocks? If you consider for a moment that you've got a plant-based, outward appearance, hominid-type creature. In other words, it's plant-based, but it has the same outward shape as we do. They'd easily be able to incorporate rocks into their, you know, maybe they're carrying them around. Maybe they're partly made out of rocks, which is why the Iroquois Indian called them stone giants and said that arrows would bounce off them because they're bouncing off rocks. It would even explain the guy shooting at him with the .22 that had no effect. It would explain why dogs are hesitant to chase after these things. The dogs recognize, like, hey, I'm smelling a tree, but it's moving, right? Wow, that doesn't make any sense. So the dog freaks out. Yeah, Michael, but what about the ones that are killing deer and elk and moose and bear and eating them? I know a lot of you guys are fond of the fact, you know, like, you're convinced that they're hunting things, and maybe they are. Maybe they are hunting things. I haven't seen that evidence yet. I'm not convinced that's what's going on. The other thing that could be going on, and a couple of you guys have asked me this very reasonable question, like, do I think they're all plant-based? Probably not. Probably, you know, like orang pentake in the jungles of Sumatra and Borneo seems to me more likely to be a bipedal orangutan type creature. And when I was in Venezuela and I had the opportunity to speak to the Pomone Indians, they shared with me that they had some upright walking they called them chimpanzees because they didn't have any tails in their jungle. Now maybe these things are hominids, relic hominids, Australopithecus type hominids, something that we haven't yet put into the Linus binomial nomenclature classification system. But I am beginning to strongly consider the fact that the vast majority of Bigfoot and Sasquatch reports, especially those in North America and Canada, are probably something much stranger than what we've been led to believe. So please, feel free to share your thoughts down below. I read every comment that you guys leave down there. And I want to thank you guys for the good-natured debate and for presenting ideas that I think about. And a lot of you guys send me PMs and emails and things of that nature, and you share with me stuff, and it allows me to have this massive pile of information. Think about the points that I brought up. Even Nathan Rio, Utah Sasquatch, had an occurrence where he saw what he thought was a huge 9-10 foot tall, like orangutan type looking creature. You know, you could even see the, as he said, the fur, I'll put it in quotes, the fur blowing in the wind, and like his heart started beating. He was like, oh. And then he realized at some point, like, he recognized that it was a tree. I would put forth that maybe he actually saw something real and that it was a tree, like it turned into a tree. This is another thing to consider. Why is it that we can't get trail camera photos of these things? I mean, some of you might say, oh, we have trail camera, but really we don't. I mean, we don't have very many. I mean, there might be one or two you could argue that we do, but for the most part, it's my opinion, as humble as it is, that we don't have any trail camera photos of these things. But where do you put trail cameras? When you go into the forest, put a trail camera up, where do you put it? On a tree! You put it on a tree. It would be kind of like taking surveillance on a person. Okay, I'm going to sneak up on this person, I'm going to strap a camera to their forehead. They'll never know it's there. Of course they'll know it's there. The other thing to take into consideration is that when we go into the forest, we have to step on the roots of trees. We are telegraphing through the superorganism, through this giant brain. That's what a forest is a giant brain. The instant that we enter that environment, we've telegraphed our presence to every tree in there, because these trees are all intertwined and they're connected not only by their root structure but by an extensive mat of mycelium, which is what the fungus lay down. And the fungus and the trees have a symbiotic relationship. They're working together, communicating, sharing resources. You'd be hard-pressed to go into the forest and sneak up on a tree. They know you're there. If Sasquatch is a plant person, like a swamp thing, they'd be privy to that information. It would make sense that they'd be able to move into the trees somehow. I don't know how they're doing these things. Like, I know this sounds kind of crazy, but I'll remind you again, Bigfoot's crazy. All right, once again, I want to thank you guys. You guys have been fantastic. All the comments you're leaving. If you like this video, thumb it up. I'm going to put down here a link to my other channel. I'm actually producing material now for 2 channels, and I don't want to like swamp you guys on this one channel. So if you want more, if you can't get enough of the crazy, this will be the other channel to go to. Occasionally there'll be some redundancy there, so you can overlook that. If you know of people that you think would like this material, by all means, share this. Share it wherever, post it wherever the hell you want. I feel that it's less important, you know, to prove the existence. That's where we've been for the last 50 years, hammering away. That's what the gatekeepers want. They want to prove it. I want to be Neil Armstrong and walk on the moon, like Stacey Brown said. That's the mentality, to prove this and be a hero. I prove the existence of Sasquatch. One, I'm not sure that that's possible with our limited state of science, and secondly, I don't think it's that productive. Like, it's certainly not productive for you. If you're seeking the truth, if you're trying to have a personal experience and come to your own self-awareness of these creatures, what's more important is for us to try to wrap our heads around, what are these things? Like, we have this mosaic, we have this puzzle, right? We have a lot of eyewitness reports, we have consistent information, but it doesn't fit. There's no body. Where's the bodies? Where are the bones? If it's a plant-based organism, we wouldn't be finding any bones, right? We wouldn't be finding much anything, because if it's just plants, once it died, these things even do die, it would just kind of be dead, decaying vegetation. I think that this theory, as crazy as it sounds, of them being plant-based, has a lot of merit. And I welcome you guys to poke holes in it. I really do. Or perhaps even, offer up your own anecdotal evidence or your own reasons why you think that this could be a valid path to go down. And if these things are plant-based, it would mean that we need to kind of change the way that we interact with the forest. We need to change how we interact with these creatures if we want to have positive interactions with them, if we want to increase the number of interactions that we have. All right, so what do you think? Do you think that Sasquatch has been what we've been told it is by the gatekeepers? Maybe it's not plant-based, but do you think there's something else going on here?